Environment Committee. It's Tuesday, October the 21st at 10 after 9. Mr. CLA, let's go through the agenda first. Are there any consent or continuance
There
items?
is a continuance item number 5. The purpose of it is to keep the file alive. It has met its 2 years, and it'll die unless we agendize it, so we've done that. CD12 has asked that we simply continue the matter so the file stays open.
Fine. All right. Thank you. Without objection. We'll have to hold that until we get a quorum, and we'll go back and ratify it. Let's start with item number 1 then.
Item number 1, Bureau of Engineering report relative to implementation of LEED Silver standard in all newly built or renovated city facilities. We have staff from BOE.
Okay. Who's here for a report?
Good morning. Mahmoud Karimzadeh, Principal Architect, Bureau of Engineering.
Zora Akhtar, Architectural Associate, Bureau of Engineering.
Okay. Please proceed.
Last time when we met you, you asked us to add a few items to our report before you. Since then, we have added in our post-construction analysis, we have added exemptions for the historical building, which we don't know really how it may end up to. We may be able to handle some of the historical building, and we may not. So we added that part to the analysis. We also have added the waste diversion and water use, also recommended to our post-construction analysis. I also want to point out that since we met and discussed these things, about $1 billion in construction is in the working for LEED building. We have already 16 buildings certified as a LEED certified lower level for the program that we have and a project that are in the construction. And we feel that approximately 60% of the construction money that is in the making for and targeting the LEED certified might have a chance actually to achieve a higher level, which is a LEED silver. So that's a good practice, and we think we have gained so much of experience since 2002 that we've been doing this, and we're ready to notch it a little higher and go for the silver level.
Quick question. Have you had an overall review of departmental budgets and what strategies may be in place on a going forward basis in future budgets to be able to pay to make sure that we are able to implement these LEED requirements?
Very good question. Yes, we have done that. We think in order to go one step higher to the LEED silver, we may have additional 2% on top of the LEED LEED certified level. And the total we have anticipated for all of our projects is about 6% for LEED silver. In other words, it was 4% for LEED certified, and we think it's 6% for LEED silver. I also need to point out that in the last 6 years, we have gained so much of experience. So the actual cost might be lower than that. However, we are...
Would that be considered, have you considered long-term savings as part of that analysis?
Not yet, but we are reaching the point that actually to do the analysis that you're just talking about, to look at the initial cost or the first cost versus the life cycle cost of the building, and came out and saying that, look, this is actually the saving at the end of life cycle of a building. We have buildings now coming in with the LEED silver, and we're tracking their energy saving of those buildings and compare them to the initial cost. We have started that process. We haven't really done analysis to give you an...
And have you done as a department any sort of, I guess, cost-benefit analysis, fiscal impact statement, and working with the CAO's office as we head into the next budget cycle to be able to give not only the committee but the council members sort of a benchmark for making projections over the next fiscal year?
I can't say we have done that, no, but we are able to do that and project that additional 2% into our project budget for the next fiscal year.
I think what I might do is work with the members of the committee and come up with a motion to introduce to give you some guidance and a framework to do that, because if we're able to pursue this policy, I think we have to have something that's inherently built in, and I think it needs to go through the budget process and be fully vetted and discussed. So if we actually want to achieve these goals, I think we have to do it in a way that is planned and methodical and anticipatory rather than, reactionary. So I'll have my staff work with the CLA's office to develop that based on the concept of a fiscal impact statement that addresses and identifies costs and savings associated with this policy so that we can have something that, one, goes through this committee, then goes to Budget and Finance, and then ends up as part of the budget discussion on the record.
Definitely.
Okay. Did you have any questions, Ms. Grohl?
No, you asked my questions, so this is great.
Okay. Well, let's see. What can we do with this? I guess just say, is note and file, or until we-
Actually, there are recommendations contained within it, so we've requested that the recommendations be approved.
Okay.
In addition to your motion, which relates to the fiscal impact.
Yeah. I guess we can just see if somebody
Hold
else.
it
Yeah,
until.
hold it and see if someone else shows up.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Next item.
So we would be adopting the Board of Public Works report?
Yes, yes. Madam Chair, on item number 2, a request from CD7 to hold off until Mr. Councilman Alarcon shows up.
Okay.
We can move to item number 3 if you like.
Okay, great.
Item number 3 is a motion, Han Rosendahl directing the Harbor Department to report on the condition and operations at near Cabrillo Beach. This item was initially heard in our committee on August 5th. The Harbor Department has submitted a report to this committee
Great.
for its review.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, we're holding 2. That's right. I have a card. I only have 1 card on 2, right?
Oh.
That's it.
Good morning, Chairperson Perry, council members. I'm Michael Christensen, Deputy Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles. Here to pleased this morning to address this issue. Also introducing at my right our Director of our Environmental Management Division, Dr. Happy.
Good morning, Shram Karagani, Bureau of Sanitation.
I'd like to defer to Dr. Happy to start the discussion, with your permission.
Hi. Good morning. We actually came to this meeting once before, and when this is deferred, Councilwoman Perry, you asked us to also coordinate with Janice Hahn's office, which we have done. We met with her staff about a week and a half ago and went over the report that we've provided you. In summary, Cabrillo Beach is a mother's beach. It's located, protected in the outer Los Angeles harbor. Historically, it's suffered from very high bacteria levels due to a whole suite of different things, circulation being prominent in those problems. And so this has resulted in beach closures from time to time, at a time when the beach should be used. And also, Heal the Bay issues their report card every year, and this beach consistently receives Fs, and particularly troubling because those occur during the dry weather conditions. It occurs during stormwater, but also dry weather. And so, also, too, there are some new regulations called TMDLs, Total Maximum Daily Loads. And the requirement for this beach we have to meet in 2010 is a zero exceedance dry weather requirement. And that's a very difficult compliance rate to meet. And so we've been working toward that. And starting about 2002, we developed a program that include a whole series of things that would be done in sequence. Those things include beach housekeeping, public outreach, replacement of the sand on the beach, looking at see if there's any storm drains or sewers, and we diverted some of those, closed some of those.
And what's a bird exclusion structure?
Bird exclusion structure is actually you put up a bunch of posts that string about 6 or 8 feet high, and then you put very fine lines like monofilament lines, and for some reason the birds will not come down and go underneath that. And we actually had a pilot one of those that was in place for a while, and it seemed to we actually correlated some drop off on the bacteria levels in the beach as a result of that. And so as part of the project this year, we're going to be reconstructing that entire excluder structure. And so other measures include sand removal, and also there's a rock groin that went into the beach that we think may be affecting the circulation, so we'll be removing that. So there's this whole series of things we've been working on. We've applied for grant funding in the total amount of about $11 million from Prop O. The port will, before the end of this, will be putting in about $9 million of their own dollars, we believe, to actually come to the conclusion of all the measures we have anticipated. We have also been coordinating, the Bureau of Sanitation and the port working together on this, but recently we've been coordinating with the Regional Water Quality Control Board as well, especially on the TMDL compliance date. Our problem that we have is that we are working on finishing all of our measures, and so our plan is to complete them by June of next year prior to the high use time, and that's also the compliance date. So what we are also doing, just to make sure we covered all our bases, we're developing a set of alternative plan ideas that we could then put in place should we have some compliance problems come June of next year. And so we're going to be monitoring, but one of those plans is probably looking at a circulation pump to be put in place down there to try to increase the circulation. There's eelgrass. It's a vegetation that lies in the shallow water that's actually a good thing. It's a high biological value vegetation that's in the water. We may have to do some modification of that because that may be affecting the circulation. So we have some alternative plans in place as well, starting next year, should the measures that we're putting on the ground not be totally effective.
Right. Anybody else want to add to that report?
No, Madam Chair, just the 3 items, as Dr. Appy indicated, that the time is of the essence. The activities of sand replacement, jetty removal, and bird excluder system, we need to complete that by June of 2009. So we are ready to implement water circulation device, and as he indicated, that the eelgrass management by the end of next year. So coming March of 2010, which is the deadline for our TMDL compliance, we are in compliance and we would not be sued or receive NOVs.
Anything else? All right, any comments or questions from other members of the committee? And is there anyone here from Ms. Hahn's office? Okay. We are joined by Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Alarcon, so if there is no objection, we can approve this item.
It's, I believe, a note and file item. There's no specific recommendations in the report.
All right, thank you very much. And
Can I
let's
ask-
go.
can I ask a
Oh,
question?
sorry.
That's right. So are we, and I apologize, are we going to have kind of updates? Is that part of being able to get,
We can certainly do that. That's no problem whatsoever. That's
I
your.
think that would be helpful.
Sure.
We would hate to have this come back next year in F and not have had some idea of what the progress we've
Right.
made during that
Right.
period of time.
I should tell you that we've also met with the Propo. Some of our money comes from Propo
Right.
committee, and they're very interested in this as well because there's been a lot of money spent. We want to make sure that we can. So we're going to be reporting to them. We're going to have some special meetings as well to make sure everybody's aware of the progress we're making.
Do you think a 6-month report back would be a good?
6
time
months,
frame?
90 days.
Okay.
6 months actually would be appropriate.
A key milestone, council member, is June.
June next year.
Of
Right.
2009. That
Right.
will be the critical
Right.
milestone we're
Yeah.
approaching, as Mr. Kargami mentioned.
So maybe if we look at February,
Okay.
6 months will put us
Sure.
a little too close to that
Yes.
if we can look at.
Yeah.
Okay,
No problem.
that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go back to item 1 now that we have Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Alarcon here. Mr. Garcetti, did you want to add anything or just to redo the vote? Okay, all right, great. Then let's re-vote on that.
Approve the BOE
Approve it,
report
yes.
with the additional instruction.
All right, and then now we held number 2 for Mr. Alarcon. And we do have one card on that, Mr. Alarcon. Would you like to let that person go first? Okay, great. Jonathan Palfrey.
Good morning, Jonathan Parfrey, Green LA Coalition. I'd just like to thank Councilman Alarcon for moving on this motion. This is to have a green business certification program in Los Angeles. Our goal behind this program is to cleaner air, to conserve energy, to encourage recycling, to reduce toxins, to conserve water. This is a program that, even given financial limitations at the city, there is some exciting new initiatives that you'll soon hear about, and our coalition is in strong support of moving on these initiatives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Alarcon.
Members, this is part of the effort to establish a green business certification program in the city of Los Angeles. We have not identified additional funding. However, we've determined there is a method of where we can initiate the program in the lodging industry. So I would like to ask Karen Christie and Beth Gines from EAD, and Patty McJennett from LA Inc. To step forward and describe what we're talking about.
Good morning, I'm Beth Gines. I'm the Assistant General Manager of Environment LA. And with me today are Karen Christie, our Director of Sustainability, and also Patty McJennett, who is the Vice President of LA Inc. Green Business and Green Hotels certification are integral parts of the city's becoming more sustainable in both of its own operations and in also its relationships to businesses and the operation of those businesses throughout the city. It offers businesses the opportunity to join the city and in taking important actions to green their operations and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Karen is going to explain a little bit more detail of the program.
Previously, we reported to this committee regarding the feasibility of a program for the city, and we identified necessary resources to initiate that program. After that report, the CAO recommended that we find alternatives to city general funds, and we've been pursuing several things since that report, including potential partnerships, implementation strategies, and those outside funding opportunities for the proposed program. As mentioned in the council member's motion, third-party certification has been looked into. The idea of utilizing a separate entity as opposed to just city staff has been strongly supported by the business community, and it would alleviate any sense of pay to play if we were charging fees and then certifying a business. So the idea is to use a third party, such as a local nonprofit, educational institution, or a community organization, to carry out the site visits that people would go out to the business and actually verify their green operations. As part of the application, they submit a checklist showing that they are indeed operating in a green manner, and so then site visits occur to verify that on site. So a third party would be the one actually doing that verification, and we would achieve that with funding to do an RFP and then contract with an organization. We've also, with the support of Green LA, been meeting with various organizations and having some preliminary discussions about partnerships with educational institutions. The Los Angeles Community College District has several business development centers, and they're expanding that program. And working with them, we could encourage green jobs development and training centers, provide classes for businesses desiring to operate in a green fashion. We've also had communication with university representatives to talk about their sustainability programs that they're expanding or developing, and it would be a natural progression from the community college level to the university level to keep to promote a research arm of the green business program to actually do baseline assessments and show cost effectiveness of switching to green operations. To partly support the program but not reduce the voluntary participation, we are looking into nominal fees to support the program. But again, we don't want to preclude businesses from participating because of the fee being too high and discouraging them. And we continue to look for non-city funds. We're also preparing additional green business information to post on our Environment LA website to provide information for interested businesses and also give them an opportunity to pledge to go green in advance of the start of the program. And we can start to get a sense of the numbers of businesses that are really interested in doing this and how ready they are if they look at the checklist that we could post on our program. We'll be happy to come back with a report on all of these. And one thing I do want to mention, and then I'll turn it over to LA Inc., the green lodging component is able to go first because, as indicated in the motion, it will be fully funded by the hotel industry that's very excited about going forward with this. And it's our intention, pending council approval, that the city become a formal partner in what's happening currently between LA Inc. and Green Seal, and I'll let Patty discuss that process.
Good morning. I just wanted to assure all of you that our organization, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, known as LA Inc., is very enthusiastic about this initiative. And we have dialogued with the hotels over the past year about this topic and know that and expect that it's one that they will embrace. It's true today that meeting planners, convention planners are very conscious of the need to be green and are seeking very aggressively green venues. So we think that there's a business incentive for the hotels, certainly. We have been working with the city and Green LA and have enlisted a company called Green Seal. They are a not-for-profit organization and have actually over the last 10 years emerged as one of the leaders in the green hotel certification programs. They actually were the author of the California lodging certification program, which is now suspended due to lack of funds. So we know that some of the hotels that were engaged in that will also be already able to qualify for this program. They're doing similar programs in Philadelphia, in District Columbia, and also Chicago is doing one very similar to this. However, we intend to make ours as more successful than Chicago's. So I also want to let you know we are ready to move forward pending your all approval. We have an MOU drafted. It's ready to go. We expect that rollout could be immediate, although it does take about 3 to 6 months for a hotel, once they apply with Green Seal, to actually be certified. It is indeed a meaningful and achievable and also an affordable plan for the hotels to become involved in. So, with your approval, we are certainly ready to move forward.
Members, I introduced the motion related to a green seal. The green seal is really just symbolic of what is really a cultural movement to create a mindset of green mentality within the business community, and also provide the incentives both for marketing and economic incentives to really stimulate this as part of the culture of Los Angeles. But we haven't been able to find the money, and even though it's a measly sum compared to our total budget, about $200,000 to have the full rollout, we nevertheless believe we can implement this program with no additional funding if we have the right set of partners, and there have been indications, as mentioned, like from the Community College District, that may pan out to be very cost effective. So, while this appears to be just a desire for business to get one of those green seals, which is certainly the case, it is more than that. It is a movement to change the culture of the business community to embrace a green-based thinking in their overall strategy, and that in the long run, that will be a great economic strategy for the business directly, as well as the city of Los Angeles as a whole. So I strongly urge your support.
Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Alarcon. You absolutely have my support, and thank you for thinking in a budget lean year how we can do this and move something forward. I think it shows great thinking, and your staff and you have done a great job with this. I also think we've come a long way when, in the old cliched days, there used to be this difference between being pro-business and pro-environment, and to see businesses actually being the initiators of environmentalism shows how far we've come, both in the hospitality industry, in local chambers around the city that want to do things, and the Chamber of Commerce itself, which are just very excited about this. And I know there's a number of funding sources that we've looked at the state level. I still believe that there are some sources here locally that we can find to go to step 2. This is going to be a great step 1. And in the next couple of weeks, I want to work with the Councilmember Alarcon and Councilmember Smith and some others to find that. And I think our chairwoman is somebody who has looked at doing this and making sure that it goes to all parts of the city as well. And we know the capacity of environmental affairs is not overnight, that if every business came to you, we're able to certify them. What we can do is, I think, have something citywide where maybe we look at a pilot neighborhood, We take, a handful of places where we're proactive, and for the rest of the city, reactively, anybody else who shows up at our doorsteps, we can work with them as well to start that process, because it really does require a lot of work on the business's part just to go through that kind of green audit of all of their practices. It's a great thing to go through. I've done it with some businesses, and they just, they're blown away, just as we are in our residential lives, to find out where everything goes and how much we're consuming and all of that. So it's a really good education process. And the Silver Lake Chamber of Commerce, in my area has, pushed food recycling and is pushing all these different things. And I also think down the line it would be great for us as we look at our Learn and Earn programs in the summertime and our summer jobs programs for youth is to see if we can't get local businesses, chamber, other people to sponsor kind of a green core, so that we have these youth that are walking and canvassing a neighborhood and going to every business and saying, once we have this up and running, here's a checklist, here's a, this is the goal, here's the certification, and then it's up to us to find out, the capacity piece for who will be the certifier. But I want to thank Green LA as well for their efforts on this. This is one of the most exciting things I think we can do in Los Angeles, because we've done so much in the residential area, but businesses, they're an afterthought, and it's at least half of our life here is our business life. So absolutely have my full support, and we'll work on the funding, because I am convinced even in this bad budget year, there's a couple places we can look that are funds that can't be used for general fund purposes that we can use for this. But it will also require us cooperating not just across council offices, which I feel good about, but across departmental offices too, which will, as long as we don't get territorial about that, we can, I think, work real well.
Ms. Gruhl?
Yeah, just a question too on grant funding potentially. I mean, if we've looked into the feasibility of finding that as well as part of the budget, but that we should express our support for this as it's coming through the budget process in this next year. Again, we can be penny wise and pound foolish, so I think it would be helpful. Have we looked at grant funds?
We have. Our initial results were that there kind of needed to be a city match. If we can come up with, if not a city match, other funding sources, I think there are resources out there that would be willing to pay a portion of the program. And so, I mean, that's what we've been trying to do is piece together different sources to get the program going and do that second step. So, yes, Green LA has been very helpful in this process in pulling together outside resources.
Which is great, and I think there's, we don't have to recreate the wheel because it's been done in other places, so I think there's interest. So also want to thank Green LA and Jonathan for all of their hard work on this and really bringing together the people to help push this with environmental affairs and our convention centers.
Any other questions? No. All right, thank you. All right, well then we'll...
Goes to trade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So move forward. Approve the motion.
Approve it, and then it will also go to Janice's committee.
All right.
All right, that'll be without objection. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, before you go to the final item on your agenda, item number 4, you still have item number 5, which we've held till you had a quorum. The action on that was to continue it, request of CD 12.
All right, well, without objection, we'll continue item 5. Item 4, who's here to report on item 4?
Water and Power. DWP report and resolution relative to reform of the department's conflict of interest procedures.
Okay, great. One thing I'd like to say about item 5 while you are sitting down is I think you'll have to come back one more time. This is a great report, and it shows a lot of progress, but there's something that's missing, time frames for implementation. Basically, I need to know from the Department of Water and Power when the screening procedures will be enacted, when the training program will begin, when the updating of the Conflict of Interest Code will be undertaken, and what it means that the department will take affirmative steps to update its current procedures. What is the time frame on that? I want to know basically when you're going to begin this so that we're not just talking about it. I have to say it's a very good report, and it's got a lot of really good information in here, and it looks like you've done a lot of research and reaching out to the Ethics Commission, and that's very, very good. But we need to know when this is going to happen. Okay.
Good morning, council members. My name is Cecilia Weldon. I'm the acting chief administrative officer and assistant general manager with LA Water and Power. And I think as I provide you some information, I think I'm going to be answering some of the questions that you had. This obviously is a report on the reform of our conflict of interest procedures, and it was through discussions with your committee and also with our Board of Commissioners that we approved or got approval and began to implement a comprehensive ethics reform program. We are again looking at our conflict of interest procedures, and we unanimously received approval from our Board of Commissioners on September 5th of this year for some of those reform procedures, and a copy of that was forwarded to the council. And I just also wanted to mention that our general manager, Mr. Nahai, distributed a copy of the new procedures via a general manager's bulletin at the end of September, and that has been distributed to all of our employees. The procedures themselves, it's a four-part program, and I'll just briefly walk you through the four different components. The first piece of that is we created a new procedure for potential conflict of interest in contracts, and that includes both the employee certification of no conflict, which is what you saw in that package we forwarded over to you, and it also includes a standardized screening procedures for any employee who thinks they might have a conflict with any contract. So that is the first component.
So let me ask you a quick question on that. That places the burden for potential for recusal on the employee. That logic assumes that the employee will just say, "Oh, maybe I ought to recuse myself." Where's the oversight on that point? I'm thinking that it's better from an oversight perspective to have someone say, "We've reviewed this conflict of interest form, and we think there is a potential for conflict, or even arguably the appearance of conflict, so I'm going to recommend or request that you recuse yourself," as opposed to having the employee decide. The way it's written in the report, the form can also be used to allow an employee to recuse himself or herself. Is my interpretation of that correct? That basically the responsibility is that of the employee to decide that he or she should recuse himself.
Yes, it is, and let me just refer this to the city attorney.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Eldridge. I'm a deputy city attorney assigned to the department, work on renewable energy and ethics, among other matters. And in response to your question, council member, the idea with this new program, we looked out to other departments to try to take the best pieces that we saw in other departments, and the screening, in fact, all you council members have a double-sided copy of the basic part of the screening form in front of you. The idea is that every member of the department, top to bottom, is always responsible for knowing and then certifying whether they think they might have a conflict of interest on any particular contract. And in addition, it provides a standardized way and to a standardized person where the recusal can be done. So that means every single person's on the hook, and they're getting training, and the training has started so that people can recognize it.
If John Doe fills out this conflict of interest form, there's nothing on here for the employee's supervisor to say, "I reviewed John Doe's conflict of interest statement, and he maybe doesn't feel that he should have to recuse himself from something, but I do." No, I don't see anything on that form that,
Well,
or maybe basis for non-recusal. There are basis for recusal or non-recusal. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a hole in the logic.
Well, there's two parts. One is that, to our knowledge, no department has anything similar whatsoever yet at end to end.
Well, that's not necessarily logical. Maybe they should.
But the response is that
this is arisen out of a unique set of circumstances over at the Department of Water and Power. Most other departments don't necessarily do what the Department of Water does. So, we have to tailor a program for this department.
Well, in addition, if somebody has, for example, in their Form 700, if they have certain companies or certain interests, then this procedure allows an easier way to verify whether the group of people that have interests on their Form 700 has actually recused or not. So it doesn't prohibit or diminish that ability to do an individualized check on a particular contract or particular issue, but it does provide a good information and a good spectrum of information all the way down from the very beginning of the contract.
What you're
to the
lacking
end.
is your own inherent internal mechanism for, in a way, policing yourself. I think that this is the one step that you're missing in this aspect of it.
Well, there is more that could be. There is more that could be done.
Well, I just think you should. That's all. I mean, I'm trying to help you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and
because I just think
understand.
it'd be a lot more straightforward. I could sit here and decide, well, hell, I don't want to recuse myself. I like working on this contract. Even though maybe I held stock in that company, 3 years ago, but I sold it to my sister or something. So I feel good about it.
It is always possible someone will actually intentionally try to evade the process.
Well,
and in that case, it's very difficult.
That. They may not evade it. They just may not feel like it applies to them. So what I'm saying to you, I'm suggesting to you, we're not going to get this done today. that you take a look at this narrow aspect of what I'm talking about and try to develop something that gives the oversight there within the department itself. Instead of relying on the Form 700s, the Ethics Commission is there, but they're stretched pretty thin. We're all stretched pretty thin. I'm trying to look at ways where you can, deal with this before it even comes out of the pipeline.
Okay, yeah, and I think we can do that. Okay. Let me just I have three other things I just wanted to share with you about things that we've done to reform our procedures. You mentioned the Conflict of Interest Code, and we are working with that, or working on updating that. We're working closely with the City Ethics Commission. We have just under 300 employees that have to fill out the Form 700, which was the Statement of Economic Interest, and we are pursuing that, and again, working closely with the Ethics Commission to wrap that up as quickly as we can. The third thing is, you asked about the training. We have implemented a program of ethics training. We've been working again with the City Ethics Commission office. In fact, we're using their online training program. And we started training about 2 weeks ago. We have a little over 400 employees that we're actually going to now send through this training, and it goes beyond just the Form 700, so we have others that are going to be included as well. And to date, we have just about 300 employees now that have finished that online training, myself included. I finished that training as well, and by the way, I think it's really good training. It's very comprehensive. So we are actively pursuing that. It's not the end all. When we have new people come in, we're going to send them to the training, and there are other kinds of training we're going to do throughout the year as well. The fourth thing that we're doing is with the conflict of interest statement itself. We now, in our board letter, our board package that goes to the board for approval, we actually have a conflict of interest statement that is included in that board letter. And that's to let the board know that we have followed the policies and that we are following the new procedures that have been implemented. At our last board meeting, most of the board packages now had that statement. The board is meeting again today, and those board packages now include that statement as well. So those are the four things that we are actively pursuing, made a lot of progress. We've also now designated a full-time ethics officer to manage this program, and we'll dedicate other resources if we need to do that. We've done other kind of simple things, the recusal form and the screening form that you have. We actually have a DWP form site where employees can just go online. The forms are posted there. They're easy to download. So we're trying to make it as easy as we can for employees to access those forms so we can implement the process successfully. Again, as the city attorney mentioned, this is a new comprehensive program for the department. I think we've done a lot in the area of ethics and improving our program, and we do feel fairly confident at this point, and we will take a look at your request, Councilmember Perry.
No, and I had to acknowledge that you have made an enormous amount of progress, and I do appreciate it. And the comments that I make out of a sense of wanting to help you develop a good, strong program that is easily enforced and fully forthcoming and user-friendly for the employees of the department. I wanted to also ask something a little more specific, and as I know the department's updating its conflict of interest procedures, and this arose out of the osmosis and convergent contracts that were of concern to the committee and council last summer. And the concern stemmed obviously from a high-level employee at the department with these and his relationship with these firms prior to his employment with the department. So tell me now, what is the status of those contracts, and does the board intend to resubmit them to council for reconsideration?
I guess we can mention just a little, even though it's not on the agenda, into the in depth on osmosis and convergent, the other contracts.
You can be general.
But in general, the idea, I believe, is that everything will have to be run through the new procedures with careful checking to make sure everybody understands what a conflict is. Everybody that's supposed to recuse has recused, that none of the team members who are recused have been contacted by those who are not recused, and thus, if anything comes back before the council or for our board, that it would have been run through the new procedure end to end, and that could be verified.
Now then this, generally, not specifically, but in this situation, a high-level employee's role was of concern. When you are rolling out these new procedures, are they going to be largely confined to higher-level employees, or what's your strategy for being comprehensive? High-profile filers, or beyond that?
The strategy is that every employee is on the hook in general to understand that there could be a conflict from the linesman all the way up to the GM, that you could have a conflict, and everybody has had at least some training, and as befits the level of contracting and whatnot that they have, but everybody is aware that there is such a thing as you could have a conflict, and that you have a way to recuse it. Anybody in the department can recuse. Even a supervisor on a contract later might have a relationship with that contractor, and maybe they aren't usually in the contracting process. They should be able to recuse. As far as the level, the idea is that every level that can be practically done should have to sign and certify. The only issue is that the department, as we're discovering, has many divisions. I think purchasing has $1 billion of purchasing, many contracts. So it is difficult sometimes for each person to pass through every single contract individually. And so they're trying to work out a procedure where the maximum number of people that can actually look at a paper like this during a contract and actually take a minute to evaluate and sign it will be done. I think that's still something undergoing as far as exactly what level and how many people.
And if I could just share with you just kind of an example of some of those who would be including. I mean, the obvious ones would be the Form 700 filers, but it goes way beyond that. So, for example, selection panel members, so any employee that sits on a selection panel when it comes to selecting a contractor, reviewer or author of RFPs, because we think anybody who might have a conflict should not even craft an RFP because that can introduce a conflict. Purchasing, buying agents, they're all a part of this process, construction managers, project managers, contract administrators, and then you start getting into supervisors of any of those people, and then everybody on up the chain. So we're really talking about anybody who touches any kind of a contract or, I don't know, a consulting contract. So we're capturing all of them.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, unless other folks have comments on this. I want to continue this item to ask you to come back with answers to my initial questions, which is when each of these categories is going to be implemented with a time frame on it. The screening procedure, conflict screening form, the training program, the updating of the code, and I would like for you to be able to break down some of the things you just said. I want it on the record in written form, what categories of employees you are intending to touch, not only those 700 high profile, but I think you've indicated you are willingness to go beyond it. Expound a bit more on the ethics liaison for your department in ensuring compliance and what ability that individual has to go out and do compliance and enforcement. I think an easy thing might be for you to, whatever forms you have established, to be able to track something from beginning to end. Why don't you just put it together in a handout so that all of the committee members can see it? And I would very much like for you to address this issue of shifting the burden of responsibility, from the employee just deciding that they need to recuse themselves, and to show me or indicate to me that there is some ability to have oversight there. So you have two sets of eyes looking at that, as opposed to one person deciding, well, maybe I shouldn't be involved in this. Okay?
Okay, we will do that.
Any other comments or questions?
I think you're moving in the right direction, but I'm concerned without having the opportunity to see the code of ethics changes. It's a little difficult to assess whether or not you're moving on the right track. So, for example, I specifically want to address the circumstance that came up. If you're a former employee of a company, you got to recuse yourself from this, and this process. This form is very vague, and in and of itself doesn't really accomplish much. It has to be aligned with the code of ethics, and also I also would concur with the chair's concern about placing so much responsibility on the individual, and I don't see any responsibility on management to monitor the employees. In this particular case, it was a well-known fact amongst management that the employee had worked with several of the companies that were competing, or at least one company that was competing, but I think it was actually several companies that were competing in different contracts, at least two, and there's there's no statement here that management has reviewed this employee's portfolio and declares that they do not see a conflict of interest. And I believe had management had the opportunity to make that statement, the situation would have been avoided. Also, what, and this is always troubling, it's a pain in the butt sometimes, but what the perception of impropriety is difficult to, for one individual might think one thing is perceived impropriety, and another person might think it's hardly a problem. In fact, I believe that was the case even in what most of us agree was a glaring situation. So I think that code of ethics really needs to detail the kinds of things that are most likely, the kinds of situations that are most likely to occur at DWP that may present themselves with some kind of impropriety. Without that, people will have questions. And then, of course, you have the line that says nothing in this code prohibits other definitions or other acts from being included. But so, yeah, I agree with the chair. I'd like to see the full thing, but it looks like you're moving in the right direction with a lot of 4 different strategies. But we need more delineation on the other 3 because this doesn't look good actually if it stands alone. But when you look at the other stuff, it makes more sense.
Okay, we can do that.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so why don't we have you come back in, say, 45 days?
Sure. We'll do that.
Thank you. I believe that...
Complete?
Yeah. No, continue.
Yeah, 45 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that is the end of our agenda. Anyone wishing to come forward to speak during the public comment period should do so now on items that are not on the agenda. Otherwise, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.